Hey family, it's Danielle, and today we are going to discuss how to determine if homeschooling is right for you, your kids, and your family. So if you're interested in discussing how to determine if homeschool is right for you and your family, then stick around for the video. But before we jump into this video, if you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Danielle and I am the non-traditional mommy. And on this channel, we discuss homeschooling, parenting, marriage. We do vlogs and reviews, basically anything that pertains to life. I am a mom of 12. I run a business and I obviously homeschool. So if any of that is of interest of yours, I would love for you to consider joining my little family and hitting the subscribe button. To the rest of my non-traditional family, you guys are the MVPs and I love you bunches. Mwah. Thanks for hanging in there with me, you guys. All right. So let's talk about how to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family. You guys, it's July. It's July, which means summer is slowly slipping away. It's like summer just started and now summer is slowly slipping away. But it's July, which means it's that time of year where everybody is starting to think about the upcoming school year. And this is usually the time that people are trying to decide if they're going to homeschool. Are they interested in homeschooling? Should they continue to homeschool? Just basically, what are they going to do for the upcoming school year? And so I thought now would be a good time to sit down with you guys and just discuss some ways to determine if homeschooling is right for you, especially if you're on the fence and you're trying to decipher which way you should go. Now, let me just say that every family is different. Our needs are different. Our circumstances are different. Our lifestyles are different. All of these things matter in determining if homeschooling is right for you. So this is not like a blueprint, like this is how you determine if homeschooling is right for you. Follow these steps and stages and you will come to the answer. But this is more of like a baseline, just kind of giving you some questions and some things to consider when you're discussing with whoever is helping you make this decision, or as you're journaling or praying about it, meditating about it, whatever you're doing to help you determine and decipher if you want to homeschool or continue to homeschool. So this is kind of a baseline of some things to think about as you're trying to figure it out. And hopefully this will help you come to a decision a lot easier. All right, you guys. So the first thing to consider when trying to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family is your why. Knowing your why, you guys. I talk about the why all the time, anytime I'm discussing homeschooling, because knowing your why is just the foundation. It is the most important part of homeschooling. And so I feel like the why has evolved and changed over the years, especially as homeschooling has become more mainstream. The why continues to change, evolve, and grow, and more whys are added to it. So your why can consist of a religious reason, which I think was kind of the first start of homeschooling. So it could just strictly be that you want your kids to have a religious foundation in their curriculum, in their day-to-day life, and you want to make sure that that's being introduced to them from an early start, or pulling them out and introducing it to them now. So it could be a religious reason. It could also be to help your kids stay grounded. Some people call it sheltering. I like to call it grounded, but basically you're like, there's some things that you just don't want your child to be introduced to just yet. You may feel like they're not mature enough, they're not old enough, they're not ready, or maybe you feel like your child is mature enough and ready to start learning some ideas and concepts or social things. And so for you, homeschooling would provide that opportunity to decide when certain things are going to be introduced to your child or talked about with your child and things like that. And so homeschooling can provide what I like to call more grounding for your child and kind of keep them grounded and leveled for whatever age or maturity level that they are at. Another reason could be the freedom and flexibility. Let's just face it, homeschooling provides so much freedom and flexibility. If you want the freedom and flexibility to travel whenever you want to travel, homeschooling is going to provide that. If you want the flexibility to choose what subjects, what curriculums, how they learn, what they learn, when they learn it, how long they take to learn it, homeschooling is going to provide that. If you want to do school at night because your work schedule is some crazy hours, and so you want to be able to decipher when your child is learning certain things, homeschool provides that flexibility and that freedom to do that. So it could strictly be because you want the freedom and the flexibility. It could be just for more family time. If you work and you have hectic work hours or off work hour times, then homeschooling your child may provide more opportunities to connect and to have family time. If your work schedule is a situation where when your child is coming home from school, you're not home, so you don't see them all day while they're at school, and then you don't see them when they get home from school, then for you, homeschooling may provide that opportunity and that freedom to have more family time and connection with your children. When your child is away in public school, they are gone for like 9 hours a day, just depending on what school they are at, how far away from home it is, those kind of things. So it could be for family time, family connection. It could be that you want your child to have a more relaxed pace because your child likes to take their time when they're learning concepts, or they like to spend more time reading than they do on math, or whatever the case may be. Or it could be that your child is like pumping through these subjects. They're more advanced. They need things to come a lot faster. They need harder work, and you want to be able to provide that for them. So having the ability and, once again, the flexibility and freedom to introduce, concepts or subjects at a faster pace or a more relaxed pace may make homeschooling more appealing to you. And you may feel like this could work for our family. This is my why. So having your why and understanding your why can definitely help you determine if homeschooling is right for you. If your why is, I don't like my child's teacher, or I don't like the school, or I don't want to get up in the morning, or I don't want to drive them to school, or something like that, it could definitely make homeschooling a lot more difficult for you, less enjoyable. As you come across trials and tribulations, which you will. There will be trials and tribulations. If your why is not strong enough, those trials and tribulations are going to take you out. You will find it very difficult to push through those trials and tribulations and to continue to homeschool because your foundation has a crack in it, if that makes sense, you guys. So having a strong why is so crucial. Now, it could be that you really genuinely do not like your child's school, and there are no other options. There are no other schools to put them in, or you can't afford private school, or whatever the case may be. And so not liking the school that you're zoned for could be a very strong why to homeschool. But again, understanding your why and making sure that why is a strong why is going to help you determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family. A why of, it just looks fun or it looks easy. That's not going to be a good why, and it definitely is not going to carry you through a full year of homeschooling. I can promise you that. So again, knowing your why is a great way to determine if homeschooling is right for you. Another way to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family is understanding how homeschooling will fit into your lifestyle. So first, understanding what your family's lifestyle is. What is your family dynamic? How does your family operate on a day-to-day? What do you guys' schedule look like? What is your lifestyle? How do you move through the day? How do you move through the week? How do you move through the world, and then understanding how homeschooling will fit into that lifestyle. So really sitting down and figuring out, okay, this is how many hours a day we have to do school. This is how many days out of the year we have to do school. How will this fit into our lifestyle? If I am going to be the primary teacher of my child, how is that going to fit into my lifestyle? If I plan on putting my child in 90% of co-ops or 100% of co-op, how is that going to fit into our lifestyle? So really figuring out how homeschooling is going to fit in or disrupt or make your lifestyle easier is going to help you to determine. And you guys, when you sit down and you're doing this part, it is so important to be honest with yourself and really talking about how would this disrupt, or how would this help, or how would this hurt. And so really talking about the pros and the cons of how homeschooling will fit into your lifestyle. Which brings me to the next thing to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family. And that is being honest. When I talk about being honest, I'm saying really talk about what your fears are, what your concerns are, what you're worried about, having a conversation with your kids and allowing them to be honest and discussing what their concerns are, what their fears are, what their worries are, and just really having an honest conversation about homeschooling. And when I say honest, like the bad parts, because it's easy for us to glorify and talk about all the great, but really sitting down and talking about, okay, what could go wrong, or what are some things that I am really truly terrified of, and being honest with yourself. So in the event that you're faced with that, you've already discussed it. You've already kind of sort of laid out a plan on, if this comes to reality, this is how I would handle it. So you're already kind of preparing yourself for worst case scenarios, which usually, typically, the worst case scenarios never happen. We tend to think the worst and that worst never happens. But if it does, you've already talked about it and it isn't throwing you for a loop. So really having honest conversations. The other way to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family is to talk to your kids. This is their life, you guys. This is their future. This is impacting them. And so really sitting down and discussing with them what their feelings are, what their thoughts are, what are some things that they're excited about, what do they want to see, how do they envision homeschooling to look for them as the student, what are their hopes, things like that. So really sitting down and discussing with your kids what their thoughts are in regards to homeschooling. This will really help you determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family, because you will know based off of how your kids are feeling. They are usually a huge determination on how the school year is going to look. So I will give you an example with my oldest child that I homeschooled, that started this whole homeschooling journey. He was going into 6th grade, and at the time where we lived, 6th grade was middle school. So he was going to be in a school with 6th, 7th, 8th graders. And I knew that he was just not mature enough to be in that kind of environment. So my why became, I think he was ready to be in an environment with middle schoolers. He was very immature. And so that was my why. I needed to keep him grounded. So being grounded was my why for him. And so I did not discuss with him what his concerns and worries and fears were at the time. You know, we just pulled him out and told him that this is what we were going to do. And you guys, he fought us tooth and nail, y'all. Like tooth and nail. He hated every second, every day of homeschooling. The only thing he loved about it was history. because history was his favorite subject, and he loved the fact that we could pour so much time and energy into history. But everything else, y'all, like, it was a fight, y'all. It was a fight. So we ended up putting him back in public school. Then we pulled him out again, and it was just this whole like back and forth thing. And what I learned from that was that it is so important to talk to your kids, to figure out what they're thinking, to understand what their fears are, and to figure out if it is in fact something that you can work around, that you guys can work through. Because if it's not, you guys, that may help you determine that maybe, just maybe, homeschooling isn't right for you and your family. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. So, talking with your kids and getting their feelings and understanding on homeschooling. And piggybacking off of that, you guys, another way to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family is to discuss it with whoever else is going to be involved in your day-to-day. So if you have a partner, a significant other, a wife, a husband that is going to be involved in this day-to-day, it is so important to talk to them and figure out where their mindset is, what their thoughts are, because they are going to be your support system every single day. So if you have a partner, significant other that is 100% against homeschooling and thinks it is the worst thing that you can do, and you are trying to push and grit and grind, you guys, it is going to make it so hard. Doesn't mean it can't be done, but it is definitely going to make it harder, less enjoyable, and all of those things. So really sitting down with your significant other and discussing you guys' thoughts and feelings and making sure that you are on one accord with this thing will help you determine if it's right for you and your family. Because if you find out that you guys are like, they're all the way over here, you're all the way over there, we are like nowhere near on the same path, that may help you determine, okay, it's not right for my family. You know, or you can determine you're not right for this family. But no, seriously, it may help you realize, like, I really have this desire, or I really have this passion, or I really feel this way, but my husband doesn't feel this way, or my wife doesn't feel this way, my child doesn't feel this way. So maybe it's just not right for me and my family. So talking to other people that are going to be heavily involved in your day-to-day life is going to be so important. Another way to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family is to look at your support system. Now, this one is one of those kind of gray areas, because you can absolutely homeschool without a huge support system, but it will impact what homeschooling looks like. So when I talk about support system, family members, homeschool groups, other homeschool family, and of course that significant other is going to be the most important support system. But looking at your family, how's your family going to navigate through this? Where do they stand? What are their thoughts? Is it going to be every time you go to a social gathering, they're quizzing your kids? Is it going to be every time you're around them, they're discussing how you're ruining your children's life? How is that going to impact you as the homeschooling parent? How is that going to impact your children? How will you guys combat that? Those kind of things. So really sitting down and looking at your support system. If you live in an area where there's no other homeschool families, where there's no co-ops, where there's no homeschool groups, well, how will you interact? How will you get the socializing in? How will that look? You understand that all of the homeschooling will fall on your shoulders because there isn't any type of outlet or support groups, those kind of things. If you don't know another homeschool family, is there a way to get to know another homeschool family? And if you can't, how will that look? And knowing these things on the front end can help you determine if it's right for you and your family. If you're like, hey, all I need in this world is me and my boyfriend. If that's how you are, where it's like, we don't need any outside support, then hey, you're like, let's roll. Homeschooling is right for us. But if you're a person that really likes to have the connection and the support, and not having that can affect how you move, then if you realize there's no support around me, that may determine that homeschooling is not right for you. Y'all, what is happening? This is like number 4 of trying to get this video done. Okay. But But not having support may help you determine, okay, now's not the right time because I need that support system in order to do this thing. So really looking at what does your support systems look like could help you determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family. The next thing is going to be looking at your abilities to be flexible. If you are a person that is very rigid and it is hard to kind of flow easily with different changes or different things that come up, this is something you'll want to talk about and decipher, because if you're really rigid, sometimes that can make homeschooling less enjoyable for the kids, maybe more enjoyable for you because you're able to, structure this way. But again, it goes back to your why. If your why is, I want my kids to fall in love with learning, and I want my kids to absolutely love to learn, and I want them to be able to learn in kind of a fluid way, but you're rigid, that's going to affect what homeschooling looks like and the level of enjoyment for it. So really being able to sit down with yourself and figuring out, okay, am I able to kind of relax a little bit and not be as rigid? And again, this goes back to your why, because if your why is like, I'm homeschooling so my kids will have structure and sit down and then being rigid is going to work for you. It's going to work. But again, if your why is something totally different, then understanding how you move and how you operate will help you determine if homeschooling is going to work for you. If your goal, your why is for your kids to have a little more structure, or, for you to do school at home, which I have a whole video about that, but you are more fluid and less organized and you're kind of like, then homeschool is going to look different because you're not rigid and you're not this structured person. And so trying to create something like that at home may put you in a bind, in a difficult place, and again, make homeschooling feel less enjoyable for you. So really looking at yourself and figuring out how you move, how you operate is going to help you determine if homeschooling is right for you. Now that we've kind of talked about all the things to help you determine, let's talk about the things that you shouldn't even be worried about when it comes to homeschooling, and that's finances. Do we have the money to homeschool? Homeschooling is as expensive or less expensive as you make it. You can go out and buy the most expensive curriculums that they have out there, or you can use the library, you can use Easy Peasy, you can use tons of free resources to homeschool. So sitting down and deciphering, do we have the money to do this, really shouldn't necessarily be one of the things to help you determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family. Do we have the space to homeschool? That shouldn't be a question on if homeschooling is right for you and your family, because you don't have to have this huge classroom set up with chalkboards and things like that to homeschool your children. Is it helpful? Is it fun? Absolutely. Now, again, we have to take our why into consideration, because again, if your why is I want my child to have access to the best curriculums out there, then finances should definitely be a consideration. If your why is, again, you want to have this whole school at home, or if you're trying to create like a Montessori kind of learning, then of course space is going to matter, because you do kind of have to set some things up for that. So again, these things kind of intertwine. It always starts again with your why, you guys. But space shouldn't necessarily be a deterrent from homeschooling, because you can create the space. The world is your classroom. So even if you don't have space in your home, you might be able to create the space in the backyard. You may be able to find that your library has some awesome spaces that you can can take advantage of, different things like that. So that should not be a deterrent of if homeschooling is right for you and your family. Your level of education, you don't have to be a doctorate, you don't have to have a master's, and in some places you don't even have to have a college degree. Now, you do have to have a high school diploma to homeschool. So you do need that, okay? But in some states, you don't even have to have a college degree. So wondering if you are educated enough to homeschool your child should not be a deterrent, because you guys, we're learning as we go. I can guarantee you there are teachers who have their certificate and the degrees who are learning these concepts over and over and over in order to teach them to your children. So you are learning as you go. It opens up a new door of learning for you. You learn so much. It teaches your child how to research. It helps them learn on their own when there are things that you don't know, and you're okay to say, I don't know. Let's look this up. So questioning if you have the ability or the education or the smarts to do it definitely should not be a deterrent or a determination on if homeschooling is right for you and your family. So, now, again, you need to have a high school diploma, okay, you guys? We need that, okay? Having access to the latest and the greatest in electronics should not be a determination on if homeschooling is right for you and your family. There are so many ways to get access to the internet. Again, the library, even if you got a cell phone, things like that. There are other ways to get access. And there are some people who don't even want their kids to have online learning or electronic learning and things like that. They are all about books, okay? And so you do not have to have access to the fastest Wi-Fi speeds and things like that in order to homeschool your child. That should definitely not be a deterrent if you don't have access to that. Should you have access to electricity? I would say yes. But believe me, there are tons of communities and people out there who do not have access to those things, and they homeschool their kids. So again, the fastest Wi-Fi, the latest and greatest computers and technology should not be a determination on if homeschooling is right for you and your family. Unless your why is you want your child to be this engineer that codes, that knows about all the latest and greatest with electronics, then of course you're going to need to have access to that or the ability to get access to that. Again, know your why, people. Know your why. Another determination should not be the amount of kids you have. Some people are like, oh, I would love to homeschool, but I got a baby, or I have too many kids, or things like that. And that should not be a determination. Again, you guys, let me say, every family is different. So it could very well be that having this brand new baby, because of your lifestyle and how your family's set up, means you cannot homeschool. What I'm saying here is just because you have multiple ages or different age groups or you have a baby doesn't mean that you cannot homeschool and should not determine if you can or cannot. You should, however, be discussing what does this look like? How would this work? How will I schedule and create this room and opportunity to teach all these different age groups and things like that. But it should not be, oh, I got too many kids, I can't homeschool. That's what I'm saying here. But being able to sit down and figure out what will that look like? How will that look? How will I do that? And things like that would be what that conversation looks like when you have multiple ages or have a new baby at home when it comes to homeschooling. So I had Trice in July of 2020 and we started homeschooling in September. So he was 2 months old and we were rocking and rolling. I actually, you guys, really was schooling right after I popped him out. But, that's neither here nor there. So yes, the amount of kids that you have definitely should not play a huge factor in determining if homeschooling is right for you and your family. But it should open up some form of discussion on how will that look for you and your family. So that is it, you guys. These are just some ways to determine if homeschooling is right for you and your family. So as August gets closer and closer and summer slowly dips out and you're sitting down and you're really trying to decipher, do you want to homeschool? Like, is this something you want to do? It's been placed in your heart. It's a little tiny spark and you're trying to figure out, like, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? Or if you homeschooled last year and you're trying to figure out, do I want to continue to do this? Because, woo child. These are just some things to start asking yourself and really sitting down and discussing on should you homeschool and determine how will it look for you and would that work for you guys. And it could very well be that once you sit down and you go through this list that you realize, no, homeschooling is not right for me and my family, at least not right now. And that's okay, you guys. That does not mean you are a terrible mom or a terrible dad or a terrible person because you don't homeschool your kids. Like, come on, y'all. So, but what it does say is you were able, you sat down, you really deciphered, you did your homework, and you realized that I'm good on that. Homeschooling is not for me. Versus you just thinking, I should homeschool this year and just jumping in and then realizing, what did I just do? Or you may sit down and go through these things and it just builds and builds and builds and that spark gets bigger, 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 bigger as you're discussing it and you're like, I'm about to explode. Like, yes, 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 yes. I want to do this. The more I talk about it, the more we discuss these things, I'm like, yes, homeschooling is right for me. And you can go into it feeling more confident, more happy, more pumped up, more fired up to get going. So I truly hope that this video was helpful for you. If you got something out of this video, even just a tiny little nuggets, I would love for you to give me a thumbs up and join the family. Because if you're still here, you're now like unofficially an MVP. So let's make it official by hitting the subscribe button. If you guys have more questions or if there's anything else you would like to discuss pertaining to homeschooling, please leave it in the comments below and we'll discuss it there. I'll do a video for you guys, whatever the case may be. To the rest of my non-traditional family, as always, I love you guys and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Hold up, wait, stop. If you're new here and you want to see more videos to figure out if you want to join the family, I will leave a video here that YouTube thinks would be great for you. And then I will leave some videos here that I think would be great for you. And I will meet you over there. Come on, let's go.